Okay, we are live.
All right, I guess I have the honors of saying welcoming everybody as co-chair because Chandra is not here. This is the Pillar 4 AIB Advisory Group, and unfortunately tonight because of some scheduling conflicts and last minute conflicts, we don't have the full cohort of the advisory board with us. So we are gonna just have a few quick comments and then call it a night and reschedule for 2023. But in the meantime, Rachel, maybe you can speak to Rachel A. You can speak to what we were going to try to accomplish this evening, what our agenda was, and then kind of just, what kind of what our next steps would be in terms of we'll obviously put a new agenda together for 2023 and put maybe multiple meeting dates on the deck for the new year. Yeah, so I'll pass it to you and for any other updates.
Sure. So our agenda today was relatively simple with just the welcome and introductions. And then we had planned to spend the bulk of the time going through the recommendations and suggestions that your committee had provided to the AIB on the draft implementation plan. And so then that was it. That was our main agenda focus. And so how do we want to do that today? What are we going to do?
Yeah, I think probably what we want to do is table that for now. Maybe what we could do to make it kind of just as since lots of it has happened since those comments have been submitted, I think maybe some top line highlights from you all on the things that changed between the main draft and the finally approved draft, which I understand is an ongoing evolution. One thing I did want to highlight, and I actually also did want to give Jaden a chance to introduce himself because he is our other advisory board member here before we move too far into the agenda.
Sure. Good evening. I'm Jaden Ferris. I'm the Pillar 4 student advisory member.
So I was thinking, that we should highlight the opportunity to join there's an ask out there for the measurement and outcomes work group, which is to apply to join that group. I think it's due January 5th, and perhaps we can that can be found on the AIB homepage, I believe, or pretty much if you go to the AIB maryland.gov website. I wanted to highlight is that I feel like that's a really important piece, because one of the things that was highlighted in our comments and many of the comments that were received was the need for additional outcomes measures and a more coherent framework for outcomes. And so just wanted to encourage people who are watching who are interested in that piece to look at that opportunity for sure, since January 5th will be here before you know it. And then, just reflecting what I've already heard back from you all is, that there will be a work group potentially going forward for special education, similar to the ELL work group. That was something that was highlighted in some of our comments as well, was a need for more robust comments around special education, and then the outcomes framework. So those are two things I know I've seen from the updates. But I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to highlight from the things that we highlighted in our Pillar 4 comments that have already been kind of addressed in the new documents that have been put forward, and then kind of what the role of our work should be what we should be thinking about for that agenda for the, when we get back in January. Like what should our agenda as an advisory board really be focusing in on now that the plan's been approved, the things are moving forward.
So thank you for those questions, and thank you. I know that the entire group isn't here tonight, but I just want to say thank you on behalf of the AIB for providing such extensive comments and for all of your work to help improve the comprehensive plan and the comprehensive plan's effectiveness. So just first wanted to say thank you again. For the top level comments, you know, as you requested, the highlights, if you will, from the changes that have been made. You are correct. I'll go ahead and start with objective 1. We did get some questions around the neighborhood indicators of poverty report that came in from MSDE. And so we specified in the plan that AIB will review that report and its findings. Actually, the superintendent was going to present a presentation at the last AIB meeting on the neighborhood indicators of poverty report, but we asked so many questions about the previous presentation that actually had to be rescheduled for another time. So we did specify in the plan though that AIB will review those findings and determine next steps from there. So we just wanted to emphasize that those next steps aren't quite clear yet, but they will be as we review what those findings are. And when the superintendent has an opportunity to also present the findings at an AIB meeting. For the EL work group that was task 2 for Pillar 4, we did incorporate the findings, the vast majority of findings and recommendations from the EL work group into the plan. Because most of them would not require legislative change. And just as a reminder, you know, with regards to the criteria that we used for, if you will, for looking at comments, one of the most important ones was, would this require a legislative change? Since the AIB did commit to implementing the plan as is this year. And so that was something that actually, you know, we saw quite a few that could lead to legislative changes down the road, but we're not implementing yet, but might be included as implementation considerations. And that's basically what we did with the EL work group recommendations. And again, the vast majority were incorporated into the plan because they would not require legislative change, but there were a few that we added to the implementation consideration. So you will see that in the final plan. But otherwise, those recommendations were put into the implementation guidance and requirements section that states that the AIB will incorporate those recommendations. We also got so much positive feedback about the EL work group and saw what amazing work that they did that, and then just based also off of the recommendations that we received from the advisory committee, from the public, we also incorporated a special education work group into the plan that is under objective 3. And we do have guidance around how membership will be chosen and things like that, since that was something that was incorporated into the law. And we'll be working with MSDE to determine membership requirements and membership for the work group, and largely following the same charge that the EL work group followed. And we want to also be clear that that includes determining if more resources, more funding needs to be provided to improve the education of students who are receiving special education services. And then finally with objective 4, which was to included concentration of poverty grants and the use of concentration of poverty grants to support community schools. A lot of the recommendations were around implementing templates, or trying to think of the term exactly, but a common needs assessment, for instance, a framework for community schools. I'm doing it's hard to summarize all of those changes that were implemented there, but we did put into the implementation guidance and requirements that MSDE will create a framework based on research-based practices and principles around community schools and community school implementation. Another recommendation, and something that we're adding to the technical assistance recommendations and what we plan to provide for technical assistance is professional development around leadership strategies in community schools, since that's a big part of community school implementation. We also will have a common needs assessment template, as I said, and then provided some implementation guidance around common data collection activities and strategies. So that is, uniform across different community schools as they complete their needs assessments and their implementation plans that are due the year following the completion of the needs assessment. So really it's about, the sharing of the common use of a single template or tool so that this can then be aggregated and the trends can be identified between community schools, which was a very big theme from the public feedback around community school implementation and around Pillar 4. Those are the biggest pieces of feedback that we incorporated into the plan. I believe that there were questions around the use of funding for 504 and special education. That is actually written into the law that increased funding for special education students will be used for IEPs and 504 plans. It is in HB 1300. So to change that would have actually required a legislative change. And I think that some people just actually really had questions around what that looked like, because it seemed to, there was a very clear clarification that IEPs and 504 plans are not the same, and they certainly aren't. And we know that, but it actually is written into the law as that. So I wanted to clarify that as something that was not changed as a result.
Yeah, I think that was one of Kara's questions.
Yeah. It's a really good
and,
question. It's just, and we went back and we double checked that the language was written like that, but we can definitely provide further clarification. And sorry, Ellie, I didn't mean to cut you off.
If she does manage to come on right before we leave, if she might want to hear that, that's all. The special that was definitely her specialty in the comments.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thank you. And yeah, if she's able to come on, that would be great. But yeah, I think that a lot of the Pillar 4 advisory committee feedback was actually incorporated into the plan. So this is all, we have a whole, we have all the comments and set of questions, and it sounds like, it would be an opportunity to look through that when the actual full committee comes back together after the holiday, and we'd be happy to answer more specific questions, certainly. But those are the big takeaways from looking over that feedback.
Great. And I guess my next question would be, given all of that and where we are sitting now, what's our job for January? What should we be thinking about in terms of our agenda items as relates to the next steps? I'll just stop there. What's our job? What's our charge?
Well, I can try to address that. So I think what would be really helpful is as we move into blueprint implementation more directly, and LEAs are writing their plans and submitting their plans, if the advisory committee, both between what you hear in your daily life, and everyone has different roles that they have in their professional life, and feedback that you hear about, good and more challenging as the blueprint implementation moves forward. I think that is one of the primary purposes of the advisory committees. And also, if you want to learn more about particular piece of the blueprint, or how particular pieces of the blueprint or how implementation is working, you could invite, for example, maybe you want to learn about the how community school coordinators are being trained, or how the needs assessments are being conducted, or what the themes are. And in that, I mean, you certainly could invite speakers to discuss that. And we're also, of course, AIB staff is happy to help you with that. And also, as the technical assistance is starting to roll out, as the AIB and MSD are developing more guidance around different parts of the blueprint, if you would like briefings on that or more information on that. So it's really just to, you know, to really stay on top of blueprint implementation with, you know, around your pillar, and to bring forward, excuse me, questions, you know, good new, you know, like I said, like, it'd be great to hear about, you know, how implementation is working well, and maybe giving that sort of a platform for sharing out what the model looks like, and why it's being successful.
Could you remind me what this, so there were lots of different models on how the local plans were gonna roll out. Could you remind me what the time frame is between now and when the Pillar 4 local plan is going to roll out?
So do you mean, so the LEAs will be submitting their blueprint implementation plans on March 15th,
Okay,
and that incorporates all
All
five
okay.
pillars over the next 2 years, basically. So the current school year and next school year.
okay, so they're not staggering rolling out of the different areas of the pillars.
Correct.
Okay. So March 5th, by March 15th, so they're on a tight time frame between now and March.
Yep.
So that's maybe something that we should all be thinking about in terms of our January meeting, in terms of the support to feedback to the locals and how they're doing local feedback and communication mechanisms.
Yeah, stakeholder engagement.
Is there going to be some place that local stakeholder engagement gets amplified through the AIB? So like if Howard County is doing something for their plan, like, are you going to collect kind of what the locals are doing and help amplify it? Or
Oh, you mean like sharing out, you know, making everyone aware of it?
yeah,
That's a great question. We can work on that. I think that could be something. I mean, I think we're happy to do that. If we can be made aware of those things.
obviously, yeah. I mean, there'd have to be a system for somebody to report to you that Howard County was holding a session or whatever.
Right, right.
But I just, it might be interesting, because there's only 4 of us and we only represent so many counties and we only have direct relationships with so
Yeah.
many counties. It would be maybe interesting to be able to also drop into something that wasn't our own, like, comfort zone county and hear what's happening there. And also, it's sometimes hard for the public to find information about these things. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
so having a centralized place where you could be like, oh, I'm interested in where, how I can participate in Anne Arundel County stakeholder feedback for the draft plan, that it'd just be interesting to be able to kind of one-stop shop that. But
Yeah.
I know there's a lot you guys have on your plate, but
yeah, I'm trying to think of how we could. I think maybe what we could explore is if we could link on our website to where each school system is posting their stakeholder engagement.
if they are.
And if they're not, then that's a problem.
So yeah, I think that would be great. I think that would be pretty awesome as a resource for both for us as an advisory board, but also for the just general good of the public.
For the public. Yeah. And that is exactly what we want the AIB website to be, a centralized place for the public and stakeholders to find information, to be able to access information about blueprint implementation in their statewide and in their own school systems. Absolutely. That's a great suggestion.
Great. So I've gotten some good ideas, maybe some speakers, maybe some what's happening on the ground success stories, what's happening on the ground challenges, and then really maybe this focus immediately on local implementation planning, since that's gonna all happen so fast.
Yep.
So that's great. So that gives me a lot to work with and to bring back to Chandra, my co-chair, for shaping up that next agenda. I mean, I think that's really all we have tonight. I don't want to again have you repeat too much information that we'd have to share again with the full committee. Just it is that time of year where it is virtually impossible to get you know, all the people in the room that you want to. But
Even virtually.
even virtually. But this was very helpful to me. Jaden, do you have questions, comments for Rachel or Rachel A or the
Not
or
at the
Emma?
moment, I will.
I'd love to hear, Jaden, maybe you can offline or send me some suggestions on maybe some things that you're hearing on the ground or seeing on the ground in Howard County that we could add to that, the mix on
Sure.
local implementation questions. With that, Rachel A, I don't think I have any other business for tonight until we can convene the larger group, unless you have other business for us.
That is it. But I think, again, on behalf of the entire AIB, we really wanted to thank you for your hard work. Your pillar really pulled together quite a bit in the last 2 months and gave us some really great feedback. So we appreciate that and wish you all a wonderful holiday season. So we'll be in touch. in
She's
January.
not here, but I wanted to publicly congratulate Chandra on defending her dissertation. So now we'll have to call her doctor next time we have her in the, or maybe not. Yeah, you know, whenever she's got that I know that was a big thing for her, and so wanted to just acknowledge that.
That is huge. Thanks for letting us know. Great. Well, we appreciate you being here tonight and we'll look to schedule in January.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.